Welcome to Your Legacy Stories podcast. Your host, Natalie McQueen, helps people from all walks of life to create, live, and preserve their legacy for future generations to enjoy. Natalie's mission is to help you craft the legacy you deserve, encourage you to live it to the fullest, and then preserve it for future generations to enjoy. On this show, her guests share moments of purpose, gratitude, wisdom, and tradition, and of course, their legacy stories.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Natalie McQueen with Your Legacy Stories podcast. Today, we have a special guest in the house, Mr. Buddy Thornton, and we're going to talk about not only his business, not only his books, but something really exciting coming up. So welcome, Buddy.
Good afternoon, Natalie. I really appreciate you bringing me onto your podcast. And, I don't know your audience per se, but you and I have worked together for a while. So let's thrill them and get it going.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot in common of what we do. We help authors, we help people get their messages out. So I want to be real, and I want you to share, why do so many entrepreneurs look successful on the outside, but completely lost on the inside?
That's actually very simple. When you look at the equation is no one is going to walk up to someone that doesn't look like they are fairly successful. And they also, it's that law of attraction thing. We all understand we have to put on a mask. We have to have a mask for every scenario that we work in. And I have never found anyone who walked in the door and went, yeah, I had a really crappy day, fired 2 employees. I mean, everything's just
right.
shambles. What they do is they project a modicum of calm, a modicum of professionalism, and they want the potential client or ongoing clients to feel very secure in their choice.
Right. Absolutely. We all know with entrepreneurship, it can be up, it can be down, it could be, and you're right. Who's going to go in and go, my business is, we keep it in, which is not always good, right?
This is the most important thing about that. I'm in the conflict arena. And so when someone tells me everything's great, everything's fine, I already know they're not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Now, is it a harmful lie? No, it's not a harmful lie. They're projecting the best image they possibly can. But if they're asking me to work with them, they need to understand my role in their world. I'm not there to make them be in my world. I'm there to be in their world so that I can help them solve those problems and actually remove some of the mask. If you don't have to hold that mask all the time, wouldn't it be a lot easier to go through your day knowing that you've got that success lined up?
Absolutely. So you say the way we see ourselves in the mirror could be sabotaging our leadership. What does that mean?
Well, if we're being truthfully honest and we're looking in the mirror, say the first words out of most people's mouth would have to be, wow, I've got them fooled again today.
Right.
Let's be brutally honest. If you went through every day of every week and there was absolutely no challenges, no stressors, life would become pretty dull fairly quickly.
Right.
And since we're all human and we all know that there are going to be challenges in different days, and there's going to be different levels of challenges. There's going to be a very low stress day. There's going to be a high stress day. There may even be a day where you get lucky and you have no stressful events. However, you can't fool somebody who's in that arena. That this is where I make all of my money, and this is how I work with all my clients. So yes, the sabotage comes in when they do 2 things. They project and over-project success, and they know that the longer and the more intimately they work with a client, eventually there's going to be some discord. So sure. If that's going to happen, you need to project, what, I had an issue with this situation and I was able to handle it professionally. Kind of lay a few of the cards out on the table. I'm not saying the whole deck, right? But you've got to show somebody you've actually worked in a stressful environment.
Right. So you call yourself the positive social change agent, and you've got this, and I know this because I've helped you publish these books that really help with what's going on inside, how we impact the world. So tell me the book that's right over your shoulder there.
The
Other
book,
shoulder.
yeah, I can do that. You know, this is a future book. It's been outlined. It's in the works. It's called The Slippery Slope, which they all are. But this one is the conflict within you, the barriers in your mind, heart, and soul. Now, can anybody else put those barriers in there? No. So this is a book 8 of the series, is where we do our first really intimate dive into how are we actually self-sabotaging ourselves.
Yep.
We lead in with book 7, which is apropos. It's called The 7 Deadly Sins of Choice.
Right.
You know, let's talk about the mistakes we make and how we actually make mistakes over and over and over again. And even though we are aware of them, we still are going to make those mistakes. Why? Because we're trying to keep that schema, that mask up. And so we're going to continue to make the same mistake, believing that we can always overcome the mistake.
Right.
Book 8 follows book 7 so that it allows people to realize, hey, everything starts in the heart and the soul before it enters the mind. So if you can get that in line instead of using your mind to dictate what goes in your heart and soul, how much better can your world be?
Right. And you've been doing these workshops, and this is where we really came together today to make light of what's coming up on May 20th and invite entrepreneurs and business owners and many other people that are thinking about, or maybe at the point where they don't know what to do. Tell us about that event. What's it about and who should be attending?
Well, you know, we all go through school. We all have this idea of the tools that we need in our toolbox to be successful. You know, doctors have to get through school, then they do their residency. Attorneys have to get through law school and then pass the bar. But guess what? Those are immaterial if you don't have a foundation. The
Right.
foundation we have to start with is what I call in my books the 4 pillars. We have to understand who we are. We have to understand how we project ourselves to the world. We have to understand what we're really truly passionate about, because that will actually drive our motivation. And then we have to understand how to make proper choices. The workshop on the 20th is the first pillar, and it's appropriately named introspection, because usually adults have already gotten to a point where they pretty much know who they are, but how honest are they being with themselves?
Sure.
So we need to establish a baseline of self-honesty so that we can look at ourselves and say, yeah, you know, I'm pretty good at that, but you know, what am I trying to work around? What am I hiding? What are the barriers that I've put up for myself? And people delude themselves into thinking, you know what, those aren't going to hurt me. So any professional who is struggling, they look great to the world, but they're actually struggling in their business, it may be because they haven't set that foundation in a way that allows them to be honest and get the right team together and the help together to optimize their world. And that's the people who need to be in this workshop.
Right. So I know that what you do in the workshop is, you know, you do some teaching and guiding through a very powerful workbook. So what's the most surprising thing that someone has uncovered about themselves doing this workbook?
You know, the most important thing about the questions that are in the workbook, because that's really what a workbook is. You know, it's a piece of paper. People can put notes on it. They can keep a history. They actually can use them as a little mini journal. But here's the thing that always emerges. Usually there's at least 5 to 10% of the group who takes this first workshop. They come back and they say, I did not realize how totally unprepared I was, because I wasn't willing to admit that I didn't know this, and I've had a couple of them use the S word, shame. I'm really ashamed of my lack of preparation. And I'm
Okay.
like, I don't want to elicit shame. What I want to elicit
Right.
growth.
Yeah.
If you can actually target exactly where you are honestly, then we can put together a plan for you to grow with. But
Yeah.
that's the number one surprising thing that I've actually had some people say, "Oh my God, I have really I've been lying to myself," and that's a revelation that just really kind of punches you in the face.
Right. And the other thing too, what I've noticed is sometimes it takes something to happen in your life to almost like open your eyes to see, oh my gosh, I've done this or this has happened in these scenarios, and it's a repeating pattern. And so working, I think what's so powerful about this is working through the workbook and hearing your teachings can open eyes, can really make a difference, and people can acknowledge or pinpoint maybe the things that are holding them back.
Well, here's the reality. You have to have a complete picture. When we read a book, do we just read it and then file it away, or do we just throw it in the garbage can and we don't expect to ever pick it up again?
Right.
No. If it's a self-development book, or if it's a workbook from a workshop, or if it's something that you received from a coach, someone who is actually working with you, it's something that you should consider automatically. Level one, this is a reference.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the beauty of the workshop and the workbook that goes with the workshop. This is a reference book that you actually get to make unique to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How many times would you love to be able to walk over to a shelf and pick up a reference book and not only know what the material is, but be able to go directly to what your thoughts were 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and see the evolution of yourself? That's
Okay.
the power.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so May 20th, we're excited. We know that you'll be one of the teachers bringing us through, guiding us, using all your, your knowledge in being the change agent himself, and then with all your books and everything. So we're really excited about um, this first pillar. And let's think about this one. Who should not attend?
Someone who's going to attend with the idea that, I'm just going to go check this out. I think I'm fine. I don't need anything. Those are the kind of people that are going to walk in the door and they're going to waste the first half hour just getting their bearings. They're not coming in with a mindset of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like I'm fairly accomplished. When I go to a workshop that someone else is putting on, I assume that I'm going to learn a minimum of 5 to 7 new things.
Yep.
And then if I'm not finding them, maybe I'm in the wrong workshop, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't go and have that curiosity hat on. You
Right.
really, if you're not going to be curious, if you're not actually going to come in with the idea that there are issues in my closet, I may not want to expose them to anybody else, but I have to be honest to myself. So if you
Mhm.
can't be honest with yourself, then you might not want to attend the workshop.
Sure. Okay, that's a good question, because people may be thinking like, I don't want to air my dirty laundry, but I probably could learn a lot. What do you say to that?
The first thing we do is we set the ground rules for any workshop. Number one, it's a safe place.
Mhm.
Nobody has to share anything that could create a problem. No one ever shares proprietary information. No one ever shares anything that could torpedo their business. We are very, very careful to make sure people understand that if they are uncomfortable about something, they can certainly, ask for a recess or walk out of the room. They can walk
Right.
out of the room and then get their bearings, clear their head, and come back in. We try not to trigger people. That's not our job. Our job is to let people trigger themselves.
Nice. Yeah. And you know what I found? I found that you go to these things and maybe have a little hesitation or not sure what to expect. And then you end up your eyes wide open and a new group of people that are going through the same things and supporting each other. And all of a sudden, it could be JV partners, or who knows what comes out of it. So I would say we hope that you show up. We hope that you reach out. What's the easiest way for people to get tickets?
You can go on the Path to Knowing Academy website. There are, on the event tab, there are QR codes. You can either purchase tickets to go. They're $49, or you can actually purchase scholarship tickets. If you don't think you can make it to this one, if you decide to purchase scholarship tickets, it'll give us a basket of tickets to invite some people who may not be able to attend, maybe some new kids on the block, or maybe someone who's down on their luck. But at the end of the day, if you buy scholarships, what we do is we give you a give back. When you come to the next event that you can attend, we'll give you something like a BOGO so that you can attend and bring somebody with you.
Right.
It's very important that you realize two things. Number one, we want people to come in and be curious. What we don't want is, we don't want people to come in with the idea that they're going to add to the material unless they're actually going to add substance to the material. You mentioned one thing. You said people go to these conferences and it opens their eyes. How many times have you gone to a conference and you've told yourself as you're walking out the door, you know what, I learned something from this workshop. This was fantastic. By the middle of the next week, it's out of mind.
That's true.
Here's the situation. We always offer an open door question and answer. We give people 6 months to reach back to us. We give them discounts on coaching. We want the people who attend the workshops to actually get as much value out of them as they choose to get out of them. But the one thing they can't tell me, well, I didn't see an access point where I could circle back to you with a question. They'll never be left with no door.
Right. And you're walking away with that beautiful workbook that you can see what you've done so far, and you can go home and continue that work.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most powerful things. I wish that I'd gone to some conferences and some workshops where they actually gave me a workbook, because then I would have had something that would have reminded me, hey, I need to dig into this. I need to jump into this. But, well, you know what? Maybe I'm setting a new precedent.
A precedent, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, buddy. I'm excited about this, and I know you are. So let's get the word out, and I'll put the links of how people can buy their tickets below. And let's see everyone on the 20th.
All right. I appreciate that, Natalie, and we'll see you at the next workshop.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Legacy Story Podcast. If you would like to share your legacy story with Natalie or get your legacy book started, please reach out at giftsoflegacy@gmail.com. Be sure to add My Legacy Stories in the subject line. We would love to help you share your legacy message out to the world. Natalie would like to invite you to join our private Facebook group, Create Your Legacy Life. She shares tips on book publishing, ways to create and leave your legacy, and she interviews the most amazing legacy creators, sharing their moments of purpose, gratitude, wisdom, and tradition, and of course, their legacy stories. See you next week.